Go ahead.
Well, this gets really, really complicated.
Well, let's keep it simple. Should Robert Mueller be able to, should he stay on or should he be shut down?
Of course.
Is he tainted?
Of course he should stay on. And honestly, if the Republicans are thinking about their own best political interest, that's what they'd want for two reasons. He's widely regarded, notwithstanding what we just heard here, by Republicans and Democrats on the Hill as an honest broker in this affair. Secondly, it gives it a channel for all the discussion and all the investigation to go through one pipeline instead of 50 different committees and 50 different leaks. It's actually in the Republicans' own, the president's own interest to have it go through this process. But look, let's look at the big picture here. I'm not in any position to say whether a particular crime or impeachable offense occurred. But what I am, and I think we're all in a position to say after this testimony of the last week, the President of the United States did something terribly inappropriate. He misused his authority by engaging in that kind of meeting and that kind of conversation with Jim Comey under those circumstances. And backhandedly, Paul Ryan is admitting it by saying, in effect, this is what a person who doesn't understand government would do. And that, all by itself, ought to be a source of great concern.
Presidents often do stupid things, but this is not obstruction of justice. This is not illegal. He is the head of the executive branch.
I didn't say it was. I specifically said I don't know whether it is.
He's the head of the executive branch. He could have directed him to end the investigation.
He could have pardoned Mike Flynn, actually.
Mike Flynn, but he could have directed him to end the investigation, and it still would have been appropriate. He would have had a huge political price to pay, but he's the head of the executive branch of government. We once had an FBI director who thought he did not report and was independent of any authority. His name was J. Edgar Hoover.
And I would respect the president a lot more if he'd stood up and in an accountable way called a press conference and said, I'm pardoning Mike Flynn,
but
this is over.
What defies that is that the president of the United States asked everyone else to leave the room. And so this idea that he's somehow naive and doesn't understand what's going on, the president has, a lot of experience with litigation and with the law. And so I think he did understand what was going on. He asked those other people to leave the room so that he could have an independent conversation with the FBI director.
I just, if you'll put up with me for a second, I want to go back to what Carl said. The special counsel in the Bush years locked up a New York Times reporter for 85 days to get her to testify.
This is the Valerie Plame investigation in the lake. I just want to explain it to
85 days,
folks.
a reporter's locked up to get her to testify to something she later writes a book saying was a lie, that she did under enormous pressure. I distrust independent counsels. I think that the people Mueller's bringing in are dangerous people, and any Republican who thinks this counsel is going to be neutral is crazy. It would be like expecting the Post or the New York Times to be accurate.
Well, you've kind of taken the Uzi out and shot at everybody here. Who wants to? You want to take offense first?
Well, look, my point is this. The die is cast. If the president, I think Chuck is right. Look, I don't see anything here that a reasonable person would say was in violation of the law. The president did not obstruct justice. The president did something that was inappropriate but not illegal. In fact, it is legal. It is the president of the United States could direct him to end the investigation, and he's within his authority as the president of the United States. And he did not. In fact, he said, I hope you go find out what those satellites, Manafort, Carter Page, and others were doing. So I say the die is cast. I agree with Chuck. The president ought to now restrain himself. He and his people ought to restrain themselves. He ought to keep it in this silo.
Okay, one last thing. The president says he is happy to testify under oath to the special counsel that you say is engaging in a witch hunt.
Well, I think sooner or later he was going to be asked to testify under oath, and I don't think he's giving up much in terms of special counsel, because that was going to happen.
Panel, we have to take a break here. When we come back, British Prime Minister Theresa May tries to hold on to power after losing her majority in Parliament. How will this affect Brexit and relations with the U.S.? That's next.
If you have Medicare Parts A and B and want more coverage, guess what? You could apply for a Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan whenever you want. No enrollment window, no waiting to apply. That means now may be a great time to shop for an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company. Medicare doesn't cover everything, and like all standardized Medicare supplement insurance plans, these help cover some of what Medicare doesn't pay. So don't wait. Call now to request your free decision guide. It could help you find the AARP Medicare supplement plan that works for you. These types of plans have no networks, so you get to choose any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. Rates are competitive, and they're the only plans of their kind endorsed by AARP. Remember, these plans let you apply all year round. So call today, because now's the perfect time to learn more. Go long.
An Obama cover-up? A stunning new report in the case of slain Border Patrol officer Brian Terry. His family speaks out exclusively to Jesse. Plus, the Comey fallout tonight.
Hi, I'm Dave Nemeth, television talk show host, and until recently, a hair loss sufferer. That's right, I used to have a bald spot right here on the back of my head, and being seen by millions on TV, it was embarrassing. That's when I turned to Hair Club, the #1 customized hair loss solution provider in North America. Today, my bald spot is gone, and I feel 100% more confident.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s. I love it. I really do. It has changed my outlook on life.
With over 900 experts across North America and backed by 40 years of amazing results, Hair Club provides exclusive technologies and proven solutions for every stage of hair loss.
At Hair Club, we understand what it's like to lose your hair, and we understand what it's like to get it back, and we would like you to have that experience.
Based on my need for immediate results, Hair Club customized the right solution for me. It's called X-Strands. It's new and only available through Hair Club. I walked in with a bald spot and that same day walked out with a full head of hair. Just call or go online now to receive your free information kit and DVD at no obligation. You'll hear more about our full range of solutions, including exclusive non-surgical X-Strands and X-Strands Plus.
Now I look in the mirror and I just can't believe that's me.
This is my hair, and it feels great, it feels natural, it's growing, it's strong.
When I leave my house, I'm not thinking, oh, how does my hair look? I know it looks good.
This was me before going to Hair Club, and this was me by the end of my visit. The moment you see yourself with hair again, you'll wish you'd done it sooner. Call and set up your free hair analysis at a hair club near you.
To schedule your no-obligation free hair analysis, call 1-800-967-2708 or visit gethairclubnow.com. Call now and receive a free information kit and DVD. 1-800-967-2708. Act now.
What the country needs more than ever is certainty. And having secured the largest number of votes and the greatest number of seats in the general election, it is clear that only the Conservative and Unionist Party has the legitimacy and ability to provide that certainty.
Prime Minister Theresa May trying to hold on to her job after a stunning setback in this week's British elections. And we're back now with the panel. Well, Speaker Gingrich, what do you think the surprise election results mean for Britain, for Europe, and for the U.S.?
Well, it means a lot of instability, I think, particularly from her standpoint, because I think she's very shaky at staying in power and may well have a contest in the next few weeks. I think equally important is the vote today for Macron, who has done an astonishing job of building a party in France and has a real chance.
The French president.
The French president has a real chance of winning control of the French parliament in a way that is almost unimaginable. Created a party in 15 months and has competitors, I think, in 525 of the 555 seats. So you have two different stable positions developing. Ironically, the French may turn out to be stable and the British may turn out to be unstable. And it was both a bad campaign on their part and I think a big miscalculation, because it turned out that the United Kingdom Independent Party voters, once they got Brexit, reverted to being Labour Party voters. And went back to their natural party base. I think nobody in the Conservative Party thought that would happen.
Carl, I want to pick up on Brexit because the Brits were supposed to start formal negotiations with the European Union, which are going to take a couple of years, but on the exit and the terms of the exit from the European Union, Brexit. And now that's kind of up for grabs, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, look, I happened to be flying into London the morning after the Brexit vote. And as we got off the plane, every Brit on the plane turned on their phone to get the news. And there was a guy who had been sitting there who was working in the financial services industry, immediately began swearing at older Britons. He said, if we hadn't let those senior buggers vote, we would have won, because under 35-year-olds voted overwhelmingly to remain. Well, this time around, they had their revenge. The young, particularly those with college degrees, turned out in a much higher number, and they voted for not conservative in order to thereby soften which May had said I will have a hard exit if you reelect the Conservatives. And so they voted not for the Conservatives in order to give a soft exit to Brexit. And they got their revenge.
So to give you a sense of Karl Rove, there's something he very much wants to say. Go ahead.
Well, look, I was watching the election returns, and we've got to establish this tradition in the United States. We talk about Texas 1 and Congressional District 1 and California District 35. They brought in returns from Basingstoke, and then Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale, and Tweedledale, which is one constituency in Scotland. We've got to name each one of our districts.
So you would, if we were doing this, you would say, well, the Clydesdale precincts are coming in.
Well, I'd say the Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale, and Tweedledale precincts. Now, one point of disagreement. The Labour Leave vote remained with the Conservatives. If you were a Labourite who had voted for Leave, you remained largely Conservatives. Why made the election not worse than it was? And the people in UKIP, the vote, 18% went with Labour. The largest share of them went Conservative. UKIP, this would have been a worse election had that not happened.
That's
and a worse
the
election,
Independence Party.
And a worse election if the Scottish independence referendum played a role. There were 13 additional seats won by the Conservatives in Scotland because the Conservatives were identified as the Unionist Party.
Let me just say, folks, this is after I just instructed in the commercial Karl Rove not to get into the weeds on this election.
This is not the weeds.
This is pretty weedy. All right. The leader of the opposition Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, did not gain the majority, but he still was declaring victory.
The Prime Minister called the election because she wanted a mandate. Well, the mandate she's got is lost Conservative seats, lost votes, lost support, and lost confidence. I would have thought that's enough to go, actually.
I like the guy on the right with the we need more people like that standing behind candidates. Congresswoman Edwards, does this real surprise in this election, the reason that she called it an election 2 years early, Prime Minister May, is because she thought she was going to expand her majority. Now she doesn't have a majority, and she has to deal with the Northern Ireland vote, the Unionist vote, to try to get that majority in the Parliament. Do these results mean that the anti-establishment throw the people who are in power out sentiment still is running strong?
Well, I think it is, and I think I don't want to draw too many parallels between the United States and Great Britain, but I do think that it bodes, dark days ahead for the incumbent establishment here in the United States, and I think that there's going to be a lot. Who is the
incumbent establishment?
Well, I think that they're Republicans. They're the ones who are in power, and I think it really spells a lot of trouble ahead. I think there still is this anti-establishment sentiment going on, not just here, but around the world, and that doesn't bode well for the people who hold power.
Chuck,
Democrats have a lot of work to do, though.
Chuck, Prime Minister May, I think it's fair to say, and then there's not a big crowd, may be Donald Trump's best friend in Europe. What does this do to that relationship?
Well, I wondered, actually, what the role of sort of the European and British rejection of Trump, what role that might have played around the margins, particularly since he's, in effect, intervened with those crass remarks about the mayor of London after the terrorist attack. London went overwhelmingly for Labour, and so that's a question I've had, is whether in some complicated way this wasn't also influenced by hostility toward Trump. But I just want to underscore what to me was the real headline here, which is the comeback of Jeremy Corbyn. She called this election because his poll numbers were in the garbage. He was down in the 30s. He was thought to be this played out old Marxist, and he didn't shy away from any of that ideology. He in effect doubled down on it and embarked on this remarkable comeback. I think, the big picture story here may be this resurgent, not just left, but ultra left in Britain. It hasn't been that way so much on the continent, but the polarization that's gone between the Tories and this ultra left Labour Party is really remarkable. And there are things, Jeremy Corbyn's no fan of NATO, by the way. Everybody talks about Trump and NATO. Jeremy Corbyn has a long history of rejection of NATO and sympathy for Russia, I might add. So, and he's right now on the rise, and arguably, if things played out a certain way, could be the next prime minister, he or somebody like him.
Speaker Gingrich, a couple of questions for you. One, can we blame this on Donald Trump? May's loss, what role do you think he played in that? And you talked about how long she can hold on to power. I mean, that's going to be very interesting. I mean, she has won and seems to have a coalition, a shaky coalition, but she's got no friends in her own party.
As Carl knows well as a student of this thing, the Conservative Party in Britain has a long tradition of getting rid of prime ministers. I mean,
Margaret Thatcher.
Thatcher's a great example. So the potential for a group to gather around the foreign secretary who has wanted to be prime minister, I mean, the pressure on her is going to be
Boris Johnson.
But also the secretary who is minister who's negotiating Brexit has a real shot here. So I think there's I think his name is Davies. There's a very real possibility that she's going to face some kind of confidence vote. Probably not. I mean, Brexit's going to move forward on schedule, but probably in the next 2 months, there's a real chance that she'll face a no confidence vote.
And will she survive that or not?
Survive the confidence.
I mean, you've looked at your precincts.
Yeah, she'll survive the confidence vote, but that may not be enough to have the parliamentary conservatives hold her in power. That's what happens is they'll hold the government up. They don't want another election. She loses a no confidence vote in Parliament. The government falls. What'll happen, though, is they'll sustain her there, but they'll say it's time for you to go, and she'll go. And whether it's Boris Johnson, I took George Osborne, who was the former chancellor, the number 2 guy in the government, basically said she's got a limited amount of time and she's got to go. And look, we talked about Corbyn having a great campaign. She ran a dreadful campaign and turned out to be a dreadful candidate.
Next week, the German elections, folks. So study up. Thanks, panel. See you next Sunday. Up next, some surprising advice for the class of 2017 from our Power Players of the Week.
It's just a burst pipe. I can fix it.
No.
With Claim Rate Guard, your rates won't go up just because of a claim.
I totally could have.
No.
Switching to Allstate is worth it.
If you love your dad, give him a meal that he'll truly appreciate. The Omaha Steaks Father's Day gift is filled with over $200 worth of great food for just $59.99. That's 70% off only on this special offer. The Omaha Steaks Father's Day gift includes either Omaha Steaks 4 juicy, tender 6-ounce filet mignons or a huge 30-ounce T-bone steak. Plus, you'll get 4 gourmet jumbo franks, 4 premium ground beef sliders, 4 creamy potatoes au gratin, and Omaha Steaks signature steak seasoning. Dessert is a decadent 2-pound New York cheesecake. Your order will be delivered straight to your home or the destination of your choice for the perfect gift. As a special thanks from us to you, if you order right now, we'll include 4 more premium Omaha Steaks ground beef sliders free. That's 8 total. The Omaha Steaks Father's Day gift, over a $200 value for just $59.99. Give Dad a gift he can appreciate. Give him the Father's Day gift from Omaha Steaks today.
Introducing Lean 13 from Nutrisystem. Lose up to 13 pounds in your first month, guaranteed.
Lose up to 13 pounds fast with the new Lean 13 from Nutrisystem.
Your 13 can turn into 20, 30, 50, even more. I'm Marie and I lost 50 pounds on Nutrisystem. You'll see results right away. Count, measure, meetings? No, not with Nutrisystem.
Order your 28-day plan right now and we'll rush you Lean 13. Get specially designed meals, plus 1 week of new Nutri-Crush bars to crush cravings free. And 1 week of Turbo Shakes to bust belly bloat free.
Bye-bye, stubborn belly fat.
Call or go online in the next 2 minutes and we'll even throw in FedEx shipping free. Lose up to 13 pounds and 7 inches overall your first month.
Your first 13 pounds? Gone.
Go online or call 888-828-THIN right now and get new Lean 13 with bars and shakes free.
Tonight, the DC Swamp Watch. The dirty truth about the Green Lobby. Forget about protecting the environment. We expose how they're cleaning up when it comes to making money. Be part of the next revolution with Steve Hilton tonight.
It's become an annual tradition here to sample some of the words of wisdom college graduates are getting at their commencements. This year, the speakers include a tech giant, political figures, and the whiz kid of baseball. And they're all our Power Players of the Week.
An entrepreneurial culture thrives when it is easy to try lots of new ideas. Facebook wasn't the first thing I built. I also built chat systems and games, study tools and music players, and I'm not alone. J.K. Rowling got rejected 12 times before she finally wrote and published Harry Potter. The greatest successes come from having the freedom to fail.
When you don't know what to do, you do nothing. You get still until you do know. Because when you have to ask everybody else, should I do this, should I, and that's whether it's buying a pair of shoes or going with a guy, buying a house, taking a job, should I? When you have to ask everybody else, it means you don't really know the answer fully yourself.
Over the course of your life, you will find that things are not always fair. You will find that things happen to you that you do not deserve and that are not always warranted. But you have to put your head down and fight.
You do have a special responsibility to give others the chance to learn and think for themselves and to learn from them. And along the way, you may be convinced to change your mind from time to time. You know what? That's okay. Take it from me, the former president of the Wellesley College Young Republicans.
Build resilience in yourselves. When tragedy or disappointment strike, know that deep inside you, you have the ability to get through anything. I promise you do. As the saying goes, we are more vulnerable than we ever thought, but we are stronger than we ever imagined.
We were winners that night in Cleveland because when things went really, really wrong, and then when the rains came, our players already knew each other so well that they could come together. They already trusted each other so much that they could open up and be vulnerable. And they already were so connected that they could lift one another up. We had already won.
Ignore anyone who judges the way you look, especially if he or she is some anonymous creep lurking on the internet. And if you are that person lurking on the internet, stop it. Just stop it. Go outside, do something. Weed the garden.
And our best wishes as well to the students and parents of the class of 2017. And that's it for today. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Fox News Sunday.
Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. Fired FBI Director James Comey made his much-anticipated return to Capitol Hill this week, appearing Thursday before the Senate Intelligence Committee. In his testimony, Comey described his interactions with the president, specifically a February meeting with Mr. Trump in the Oval Office, as disturbing and concerning, but stopped short of accusing the president of obstructing justice.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense.
Michael Mukasey served as the 81st Attorney General of the United States under President George W. Bush. Judge, welcome.
Good to be here.
So let's focus first. I want to focus first on what's the appropriate behavior for a senior Justice Department official like the FBI director in interacting with the President of the United States. Because when you go into the Oval Office, it's an intimidating thing, I guess. How is he supposed to behave when the President pulls him aside and says something like he said with Judge Michael Flynn?
The same way he would behave anyplace else. Yes, the idea of the Oval Office is intimidating. It may be, in fact, intimidating for the first few times you're there, for the first 15 minutes. If you've been the U.S. Attorney in 2 districts, if you've been the Deputy Attorney General, if you've been for a number of years the Director of the FBI, and you're intimidated by being in the Oval Office, you're in the wrong job.
So how should he have reacted to that?
If he thought what he says he thought, then he should have said, Mr. President, we can't have this conversation.
And he said he thought he was being directed to shut down that portion of the probe, the Flynn probe. He should have said, we can't have this conversation and talk to the Attorney General?
Sure, talk to the Attorney General. I don't think that it would have been reporting a crime, but he should have talked to the Attorney General immediately, simply so that somebody else was aware of what had happened when everybody left the room.
What about this idea that James Comey has talked about? He used the word. He said the FBI has traditionally been independent of the executive branch.
Yeah.
Is that real? Is that true?
No, it's not true. The FBI is in the executive branch, and it is not independent. There's a very funny story about Ramsey Clark when he first became AG. Showed up on a Saturday and wearing a sport jacket, and was stopped in the hall by a watchman who said, "Can I see your ID?" So I'm the Attorney General. He said, "No, you're not. That's fine. Show me your ID." He said, "No, I'm the Attorney General." He said, "I don't care if you're J. Edgar Hoover himself. Show me your ID." That's some people's idea of the FBI being independent, but it's not.
So the FBI director and the Justice Department are part of the executive branch. They're subject to the political accountability of the President of the United States. And yet there's some tension there because you don't want political actors directing investigations or saying stop that investigation. So there is some tension. There is some art to this.
There is. You don't want political actors doing that. At the same time, if there are, for example, reasons of state why an investigation should be stopped, if somebody is investigating a relatively minor crime committed by some foreign diplomat or committed by somebody with whom, in whom the president has a much larger interest, he'd be perfectly proper in saying, "I want that investigation shut down. There are bigger things at stake here."
Was the president's behavior, in your mind, improper? I'm not saying illegal. I'm just saying improper first.
Sure.
Sure. Shouldn't have acted that way.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, there are a lot of things that you don't do, not because it's against the law, but simply because you don't do them. Okay. And that's one of them.
All right. Now, what about this question of obstruction of justice? Do you see any of that in the facts that Comey laid out?
No.
Why not?
The obstruction of justice statute, insofar as it's relevant, requires that the president have acted corruptly, unless he acted by force, which obviously he didn't. So that he acted corruptly. That means doing something lawful by an unlawful means, or doing something unlawful. He didn't do either one of those. It wasn't that he took a bribe in order to shut down the investigation. Right. It wasn't that he offered a bribe in order to shut down the investigation. He acted apparently out of concern for Flynn, perhaps even out of concern for himself. That's not corruptly.
But what about the chain of events, which is that he said, "I would hope to let this go," and then later, some months later, he fired Comey. Is that a kind of chain of events that he was trying to shut down the probe by firing Comey?
If you want to shut down the probe, you don't shut it down by firing somebody to whom the people who are conducting the probe report.
I think that's been proven by the fact of all the uproar about
Correct.
this.
It's just not. That's just not the way you shut down a probe.
But if Comey is kind of having it both ways here. On the one hand, he says, "Look, I felt directed to shut down the probe." On the other hand, I'm not saying it was an obstruction of justice. But if he really felt it was directed, okay, he was being told, "Look, you must do this." Why didn't he have an obligation to go back to the Justice Department, tell his superior at the Attorney General, and maybe tap out a resignation letter saying, "I cannot work for somebody who's directing me not to investigate something"?
That's certainly an alternative. And in fact, you recall when he was Deputy Attorney General, he had that famous hospital scene.
Yes.
He did threaten to resign unless they changed the program.
Right. I think he typed out the letter there in advance of that meeting.
Right. And in fact, he was joined with the man who is now supposedly investigating all of this, Robert Mueller. The two of them both threatened to resign.
That is right. And then Comey clearly said, but if Comey had said, "I believed it was obstruction at the time," then he really would have had to have talked to the Attorney General and maybe resigned, threatened to resign.
Right.
You would think he would.
Right.
What do you make of him going back to the FBI as he testified, telling half dozen or 10 colleagues about this, and then keeping it quiet? Essentially sticking his notes into a drawer and then keeping it quiet from everybody until he was fired.
That's what's known as having an ace in the hole. He not only did he create a memo, he created a memo that was by design not classified so that he could have it leaked eventually, gave it to somebody else to leak so that he wouldn't have his fingerprints on it immediately, and assured that, according to his own statement, that a special a special counsel would be appointed. That's an extraordinarily devious thing to do.
Okay, but bottom line, if, based on the facts we know now, there is not an impeachable offense or an indictable offense in what we learned.
An impeachable offense is what Congress says is an impeachable offense.
It's a political act.
It's a political act, and it's gross neglect of duty or gross abuse of power. It needn't be a crime.
Right.
I don't think this rises to an impeachable act, but that's for Congress to decide. It is not a crime.
All right, Judge, thanks very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
All right, much more to come as we break down the Comey testimony. So should the former FBI director have voiced his concerns about President Trump earlier or even resigned? Our panel weighs in next.
Why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you.
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have.
When you schedule with Safe Flight Auto Glass, you get time for more life. This family wanted to keep the game going.
Hey, Mom, one more game?
With Safe Flight, you get a text when we're on our way. You can see exactly when we'll arrive.
Sure. Bring it. Get him.
I'm Michael with Safe Flight,
Thanks for coming. It's right over here.
giving you a few more minutes for what matters most. Take care.
Bye.
Safe Flight Repair, Safe Flight Replace.
Same hotel, same price? No! There's a bunch of different prices out there all over the internet. Trivago instantly compares them to find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
Americans, 83% try to eat healthy, yet up to 90% fall short in getting key nutrients from food alone. Let's do more. Add 1-A-Day 50 Plus, a complete multivitamin with 100% daily value of more than 15 key nutrients. 1-A-Day 50 Plus.
Wise man, I'm nervous about things I can't control affecting my good credit score.
I see you've planted an uncertainty tree. Chop that thing down. The clarity you seek lies within the CreditWise app from Capital One. CreditWise helps you protect your credit. And it's completely free for everyone. It's free for everyone? Do hawks use the stars to navigate?
I don't know.
I thought you did. I don't know either. Either way, it's free for everyone.
Cool.
What's in your wallet?
I no longer live with the uncertainties of Hep C, wondering, what if? I let go of all those feelings because I am cured with Harvoni.
Harvoni is a revolutionary treatment for the most common type of chronic hepatitis C. It's been prescribed to more than 250,000 people and is proven to cure up to 99% of patients who've had no prior treatment with 12 weeks. Certain patients can be cured with just 8 weeks of Harvoni. Before starting Harvoni, your doctor will test to see if you've ever had hepatitis B, which may flare up and cause serious liver problems during and after Harvoni treatment. Tell your doctor if you've ever had hepatitis B, a liver transplant, other liver or kidney problems, HIV, or any other medical conditions, and about all the medicines you take, including herbal supplements. Taking amiodarone with Harvoni can cause a serious slowing of your heart rate. Common side effects of Harvoni include tiredness, headache, and weakness.
Ready to let go of Hep C?
Ask your Hep C specialist about Harvoni.
Your father and I are looking for a new car.
Car shopping. You're gonna need a guru.
Guru? You can't own the deal until you own you. Are you ready to own you?
Not that kind of guru. Car gurus. Car gurus analyzes everything from price and vehicle history to dealer reputation, then shows you the best deals from top-rated dealers.
Feel the deal, Alice.
Car Gurus. Search 5 million cars in about 5 seconds. Find great deals at cargurus.com.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that he can't do these things?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. I think, as I said earlier, I think the circumstances were such that I was a bit stunned and didn't have the presence of mind. And I don't know, I don't want to make you sound like I'm Captain Courageous. I don't know whether even if I had the presence of mind, I would have said to the president, sir, that's wrong.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio Thursday questioning why former FBI Director James Comey didn't immediately report his concerns about President Trump's behavior to the White House counsel's office. Let's bring in Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger, Washington columnist Kim Strassel, and editorial board member Joe Rago. So Dan, does this self-description of Comey's behavior, I didn't have the self-possession to address the president directly and tell him this isn't appropriate. Does that wash in your mind?
I don't think it doesn't wash in my mind, Paul, but more importantly, does it wash in the minds of the American people, everybody who watched that? I would include even Democrats. Look, there was something about the Comey narrative that just didn't quite add up. And that exchange with Senator Rubio was a perfect example. I mean, virtually everybody listening to his description of what went on in the Oval Office, and certainly anybody who's been around Washington, would have said something improper happened there. You're the director of the FBI, and he could have walked out of that office, gone over to the White House counsel, Don McGahn, and said, the president has just done something improper. Let me tell you, you have to go in and explain to him that this sort of thing can't happen, or even have gone to the Attorney General. And to say, I don't know, I was so startled, strains credulity.
Well, if he didn't want to go to the White House counsel's office because he thought, oh, well, maybe the White House counsel's intimidated by the president, the Attorney General of the United States is his immediate superior. The Deputy Attorney General is the immediate superior, but then the Attorney General. And you should do that. And he said he didn't want to do that because he thought, Joe, that the Attorney General was going to recuse himself from the Russia probe. Well, did he know that at the time?
Right. I mean, that's the big question. How did he know that? It's another.
He couldn't have known because he recused himself 2 weeks later, right?
Right. I mean, unless he's a fortune teller. But his whole narrative is sort of, I was so stunned. I just couldn't. I didn't have the composure to do anything. But then he goes back. He writes a memo to himself. He discusses it with a half dozen of his senior deputies, and then reserves all this information for himself, doesn't inform the public, doesn't tell any of his superiors. It just doesn't add up.
All right, let's take a clip of an exchange with Senator Rich and Jim Comey.
I mean, as the President of the United States, with me alone saying, I hope this, I took it as this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I took it.
You may have taken it as a direction, but that's not what he said.
Correct.
He said, I hope.
Those are exact words, okay. Correct.
You don't know of anyone that's ever been charged for hoping something. Is that a fair statement?
I don't, as I sit here.
Kim, that's crucial to this question of obstruction, as Judge Mukasey made clear. I mean, do you think that looking at all of this, there is, I mean, the Democrats are obviously, many of them going to say this is obstruction. But what about the ultimate impact here? Is that going to play politically, do you think?
No, I don't. I mean, they're going to try to make it, but this was a pretty devastating blow that Jim Comey ultimately made to the Democratic case that there was obstruction. Because you look at the exact words, and he has them down there in black and white, and even he had to admit under testimony that the clear meaning of those words, hope, was not a direction. He could take it the other way, and Democrats can make a big fuss over that, but it's pretty clear cut on a piece of paper.
All right, Dan.
Yeah, I want to add one point here. Judge Mukasey just explained to us that impeachment is a political decision, right, by the House of Representatives. And the Democrats have been trying to run this offense against Donald Trump as a political event. Jim Comey's appearance was one of the most melodramatic political events in Washington in years. And it just didn't live up to its billing. He did not make the case for them in the way they wanted to, that the president had done something in violation of the law.
All right, but there's still political damage, Joe. I agree with Dan's overall summary, but there was. I mean, he called him a liar. Trump was, if you want to read the worst into it, Trump was trying to kind of subtly imply, hey, do me a favor here, and there was a couple of exchanges. Comey described it as a sort of patronage relationship. Where I don't believe Comey is, he's not a babe in the woods. As Judge Mukasey said, this guy is he's a bare knuckle bureaucratic fighter who knows how to really put presidents in their place, frankly.
Right. I mean, look, Judge, this is a guy consummate professional who's caused crises in every administration in which he served. You had the Bush administration over wiretapping under Obama. You had the Hillary Clinton email investigation and his improper exoneration of her in the summer, and now this. It leads me to believe that you're exactly right, that he knows what he's doing. When Trump had this kind of Tony Soprano-like behavior, like maybe this case it'd be nice if it went away. Comey was probably thrilled. This is exactly the kind of material that he can use as political insurance.
And he went back and typed out that memo and kept it as a kind of form of political insurance. Never know when you're going to need that, right?
No, and he said explicitly that he leaked it in the hopes of prompting a special counsel.
And we want to get into that in the next block. When we come back, the White House goes on offense in an effort to move beyond the Russia probe and keep the president's agenda on track. But is their strategy a smart one?
No collusion. No obstruction. He's a leaker, but we want to get back to running our great country.
Take on the mainstream in Nissan's Midnight Edition. Available now at America's best sales event.
I love to eat. I love hanging out with my friends. I have a great fit with my dentures. I love kiwis. I've always had that issue with the seeds getting under my denture. Super Polygrip Free, it creates a seal of the dentures in my mouth.
Even well-fitting dentures let in food particles. Just a few dabs of Super Polygrip Free is clinically proven to seal out more food particles, so you're more comfortable and confident while you eat.
Super Polygrip Free made eating the kiwi an enjoyable experience.
Try Super Polygrip Free.
This is an urgent message from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. There is an emergency food crisis for elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union. These people live on pensions so small they must daily decide between buying bread or firewood to keep warm. For just $45, we'll rush an emergency survival package to help one desperate elderly person for a month. Call right now.
Call 800-477-5100.
In Ukraine, there's no support network. They don't have food cards or neighbors that come in to help. They're turning to us because they have nowhere else to turn.
God promises to bless those who bless Israel. May you be blessed as you bless His children.
Jane Sanders on Your World. She talks their new plan to push progressive ideas nationwide and reacts to the calls for Bernie 2020 Monday.
Early in my career, I chose soccer over college because the opportunity was too good to pass up. But in the back of my mind, it was always that void. I want to earn a degree. I chose SNHU because it gives me an opportunity to go back to school in a life that is chaotic. I want to have a strong foundation to attack that next challenge with. To actually commit to it is always the hardest, but you'll always have to push through that. Find out what you can achieve at Southern New Hampshire University, the official education partner of Major League Soccer.
Looking for a safer way to burn yard waste? Stop! Don't burn in a rusty barrel like this. Burn the safe way with the Burn Cage. It doesn't just burn, it incinerates, leaving nothing behind but fine ash. And when you're done, the Burn Cage folds up neatly for storage.
For a free information kit about the Burn Cage, call 1-800-731-6693. That's 1-800-731-6693. Online at burncage.com.
Mr. Comey has now finally confirmed publicly what he repeatedly told President Trump privately. That is, that the president was not under investigation as part of any probe into Russian interference. Mr. Comey's testimony also makes clear that the president never sought to impede the investigation into attempted Russian interference in the 2016 election.
That was President Trump's personal attorney, Mark Kasowitz, Thursday, responding to James Comey's appearance on Capitol Hill. The president himself tweeted Friday, quote, "Despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication." And wow, Comey is a leaker. We're back with Dan Henninger, Kim Strassel, and Joe Rago. So, Kim, I want to address this question of leaks first. And we have Assad of Comey talking about how he directed a leak of his memos. Let's look.
The president tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
Kim, that's pretty remarkable. Not the fact that he leaked through a cutout. That happens all the time in Washington. We should tell our viewers that. But the fact that Comey said he deliberately leaked it to trigger a special counsel probe.
The deliberateness of it, also the ease with which he describes the process that he went through to leaking, because this is now part of the discussion in Washington was this the first time that he did this? If you think back and you step back, the last 6 months of drama, almost all of it has come from anonymously sourced stories, often mostly wrong, but from different members of the intelligence community. And it's a very disturbing question about where all of these are coming from, and I think it opens a new question into Comey himself and whether or not he's ever even done this before.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like he's looking for political. I mean, he really does. He wants Mueller to be able to nail Trump. That's the implication I take out of this. He wanted that special counsel, and he has teed Mueller